Citizenship on the Go. Lesson 6. American Government. Rights and Responsibilities. Part 3. Civic Responsibilities. While rights are things you can do, responsibilities are things you should do. We all have responsibilities to our families, neighbors and friends, co-workers, employers or employees, society, and the government. In the United States, everyone, no matter their class, immigration status, or level of income, shares certain responsibilities to each other and to the country in which they live. A core concept of U.S. government is the rule of law. According to the rule of law, everyone must follow the law. Leaders must obey the law. Government must obey the law. No one is above the law, not even the president of the country or the governor of a state. A responsibility of everyone living in the United States is to obey federal, state, and local laws. One basic way people in the United States are expected to follow the law is by filing their taxes. Every year, whether or not you're a citizen, you have the responsibility to file your taxes with the Internal Revenue Service, or IRS. Usually, the last day of the year you can send in federal income tax forms to the IRS is April 15th. Filing income taxes by April 15th every year is a responsibility of everyone living and working in the United States, not only citizens. Not only do people working in the United States have to pay federal income tax, but also, in most states, they have to pay state income tax as well. People who live and work in Connecticut, for example, have the responsibility of filing their Connecticut state tax returns by the same date that federal tax returns must be sent in, April 15th. During your naturalization interview, you may be asked if you owe any taxes. It's important to have a record of taxes you've paid while working in the United States. If you've lost your record, you can ask the IRS for a copy. If you have overdue taxes, you should make a plan with the IRS to pay whatever you owe that's past deadline. Civics test question. What is the rule of law? What is the rule of law? Everyone must follow the law. The rule of law is the idea that no one is above the law. Everyone, including leaders and government officials, must obey the law. Civics test question. When is the last day you can send in federal income tax forms? When is the last day you can send in federal income tax forms? April 15th. Most of the time, April 15th is the last day you can send in your federal income tax forms for the previous year. Most civic responsibilities, like filing taxes, apply to people of any gender in the United States. There is one special responsibility, however, that is only for men. This men-only responsibility has to do with the U.S. military. The United States military is the country's armed forces. The military has several branches that take on different roles and responsibilities. For a long time, many military posts were officially open only to men, but toward the start of the 1900s, women began serving in non-combatant military posts, and toward the middle of the century, the law was changed to allow women to serve in military posts that had previously been open only to men. Nowadays, it's a right shared by men and women alike to serve in the armed forces if they so choose. Women and men can serve in the U.S. military. The military consists of the Navy, Army, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard. The most recently added branch of the U.S. Armed Forces is the Space Force, which was officially established in 2019. The National Guard is also a part of the U.S. military. The National Guard is usually called on to serve at the state level, but can be commanded to take action at the federal level as needed. While both women and men have the right to voluntarily join any branch of the U.S. military, men living in the U.S. have a responsibility by law that has not yet been extended to women. This responsibility is linked to something called the draft. When a government requires people to join a nation's armed forces, it's called a draft. The federal government drafted young men in the U.S. into the military during the Civil War, World War I, World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War. Today, the U.S. military is completely made up of people who chose to join without being drafted. The draft has not been used for many decades. Even so, men between the ages of 18 and 26 must still register for military service, adding their names to a list of people who could be called if the government ever decided it is necessary to use the draft again. This registration system is called the Selective Service. Between 18 and 26 means after your 18th birthday and before your 26th birthday. So to say that men must register for the Selective Service between the ages of 18 and 26 is the same as saying that men must register for the Selective Service at the ages of 18 through 25. Only people whose birth certificates list them as male are required to register for the Selective Service. If a male citizenship applicant was living in the U.S. between the ages of 18 and 26 and did not register at the time, even if they are older than 25 now, it will be necessary for them to register retroactively as part of the citizenship application process. Civics test question. When must all men register for the Selective Service? When must all men register for the Selective Service? Between 18 and 26. All men must register for the Selective Service at the age of 18 and before turning 26. If a person eligible for the Selective Service is living in the United States when they turn 18, they should register as soon as possible, at age 18. Registering for the Selective Service is a responsibility of all men living in the United States between the ages of 18 and 26, whether or not they are citizens at that time. And following laws like filing federal and state tax forms by April 15th is a responsibility of everyone with a taxable income in the U.S., regardless of citizenship status. Certain other responsibilities, however, are only for U.S. citizens. Two responsibilities of citizens only are to serve on a federal or state jury when called to court and to vote in federal elections. The Constitution gives citizens who have been accused of a crime the right to trial by jury. A jury is a group of citizens who listen to a court case and decide if a person is guilty or innocent of the crime of which they've been accused. In Connecticut, legal permanent residents who are not yet citizens can be asked to serve as jurors at the local level, but no matter the state, only U.S. citizens can serve as jurors at the federal level. If a U.S. citizen receives a letter calling them to go to court for jury duty, they are required to serve because jury duty is not only an important responsibility, but also a legal obligation. Another responsibility only for citizens is to vote in federal elections. Unlike jury duty, voting is not a legal requirement. The government does not penalize citizens for failing to vote. Voting is a civic responsibility, however. Even though citizens are not required to vote and can legally choose not to do so, democracy works best when all citizens participate in the democratic process. Many thousands of Americans over the years have fought for citizens' right to take part in federal elections. Because of the hard work of people who fought for voting rights, all citizens 18 and older have the right and also the responsibility to help choose competent people to serve in government and represent their ideas and interests. Civics test question. What is one responsibility that is only for United States citizens? What is one responsibility that is only for United States citizens? Vote in a federal election. One responsibility of U.S. citizens only is to vote in a federal election. Another responsibility of citizens only is to serve on a jury when called. When voting in federal elections, citizens have the choice of voting for candidates who belong to different political parties. There are many political parties in the United States, each with its own priorities and goals. People running for federal, state, or even local office in the United States are usually members of a political party that aligns with their aims for government action. Although there are many parties in the U.S. with some local influence, however, at the federal and state levels of government, there are currently only two major political parties in the country. The two major political parties in the United States are the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. The elephant is often used as a symbol of the Republican Party, and the donkey is often used as a symbol of the Democratic Party. Since the 1850s, all U.S. presidents have belonged to one of these two parties. Nowadays, governors, senators, representatives, and other officials in federal and state office also usually belong to one of the two major political parties. Also, since the 1850s, for example, all but one governor of the state of Connecticut have been members of either the Republican or the Democratic Party. U.S. citizens do not have to be a member of a political party to vote. If anyone does register as a member of a political party, they're not required to vote for their party's candidate in local, state, or federal elections. One advantage to registering as a member of a political party, though, is the ability to vote in closed primary elections. Connecticut is one of several states that has closed primaries. This means residents of Connecticut must belong to a specific political party to vote in their primary election. Many other states have open or mixed primaries, which allow voters to participate in a primary election even if they're not a member of the primary's political party. Citizens who are interested in helping choose a party's candidate for president or for another position in government before the official elections should check into their state's rules about registering to participate in primaries. Civics test question. What are the two major political parties in the United States? What are the two major political parties in the United States? Democratic and Republican. The two major political parties in the United States are the Democratic and the Republican parties.